What's going on, everybody? It is that time again, the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 116 on this Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy, with you on a bye-week Thursday. Some recruiting things to get into as per usual with our man CK here. New linebacker offer in the 2025 class. We're going to break that down a little bit. Collin went down and saw Oklahoma's 2025 quarterback. We'll check in on him a little bit. We'll evaluate some things during the bye week as we get ready to go into the back half of the scheduled Texas game, of course, next week. And then James E. Jackson will be along later on the show for a little in-state recruiting roundup as well. So nice and tidy Thursday bye week show. Send you into your free weekend. No stress if you're an OU fan. You get to kick back for a weekend. Just watch the other games. And then we'll dive headfirst into Texas week next week. Be sure, off the top, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to Oklahoma247sports.com. If you're a VIP member, make sure to like this video as well. All that stuff helps a lot. So I want to try to make sure I get that in earlier in the shows. Get that in off the top. So, CK, without further ado.
Yes, sir.
Oklahoma made some waves this week on the recruiting side. They sent out an offer on, it was Tuesday, I believe, to 2025 linebacker Kaleb Burns. Now, Kaleb Burns is committed to Baylor, has been since, I believe, late July. He's a four-star composite. We've talked about this over the last several weeks, kind of what's left in 2025. That class has kind of come together. We talked a lot about the defensive line because a couple of guys have come off the board. A linebacker offer here to Kaleb Burns. I'm just going to ask you, just not knowing anything on my end and from a fan's perspective, you see an offer go out like this in the middle of October to a guy who's been committed somewhere for, a couple of months. You're thinking, okay, they must think they have a real shot to flip him. Kind of give us a little bit of the rundown here with Burns, what you know about him as a player, and also just how real is this? Is this something that could really happen and Oklahoma could add him to their 2025 class?
Yeah, this is a really cool offer that goes out in the state of Texas. Kaleb Burns, 6 foot, 220-pounder, and this is someone who I've known for a very long time. Kaleb trains with Donnie Baggs, who was a former linebacker at Texas A&M. He played for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, and now he's down in the greater Houston area, mentoring and training linebackers, not just down in that neck of the woods, but across the state of Texas. So knowing Donnie, it's kind of cool. This was a recruit that Donnie Baggs had kind of put on my radar a long time ago and said, hey, I've got one that I think is going to be a really darn good football player in Kaleb Burns. And you see him back then, and it doesn't take long to realize this is a recruit that's got everything in front of him. And so fast forward to today, Kaleb Burns committed to Baylor. He's kind of had an interesting recruiting process, Josh. He was committed to Texas Tech at one point. SMU surged over the course of this recruiting process. The Mustangs felt like they were going to get him at one point after a visit that went really well. He goes to Baylor, and obviously Dave Aranda, that Bears staff, what they do defensively, it's very attractive to a rising linebacker recruit. But among all this is Oklahoma up across the Red River going, well, at some point, if we feel the need, we probably need to go ahead and find a way to add another linebacker commit to this class if possible. Obviously, they have Marcus James, an in-state guy, and Marcus is a really talented player. But as we know, this is a linebacker-centric staff at OU. They love the position. They really care about it. And they've said it time and again, they want to build their program around the linebacker spot. And so in Kaleb Burns, they're getting a guy, at least on the offer board, that is on a tear right now. Already to 24 tackles, had a touchdown last week, if I remember correctly, forcing a lot of pressure in the backfield. And in general, this is a very instinctual, effective football player who can bring a little bit of everything to the table. Good in coverage, certainly improving in that area, has some pass rush elements to his game. And then, of course, the run stuffing is certainly part of his game as well. And so I'm very excited to see how this goes now that Oklahoma is officially involved here with Kaleb Burns. He will be visiting very soon. He's currently scheduled to be on campus in Norman for the October 19th game, which is against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, Josh, he will visit Oregon on October 12th. The big reminder here, though, is, hey, he's still committed to Baylor.
Sure.
So someone's going to actually have to pull this flip off and get it done. But long story short, Kaleb Burns is entering kind of the second recruitment of this process. And he's made it very clear that while he plans to remain pledged to Baylor while sort of navigating all this, he's very much looking forward to evaluating both Oklahoma and Oregon as potential destinations. And so these three programs will be battling for a linebacker recruit that, in my opinion, has all the potential in the world.
I mean, like you said, Oklahoma, we talked about this over the last few years. I mean, this is a position that is Brent Venables' baby, and it has to be incredibly attractive and hard to ignore if you're a player like Kaleb Burns. I mean, you look at obviously what Danny Stutzman has become, what Kip Lewis has become, Corey McKenzie, a little bit of a later bloomer, if you want to say it like that, what he's become. Year two guys, Samuel Masigo, Lewis Carter, both are getting on the field and making an impact. I would have to think that that's an extremely attractive offer if I was Kaleb Burns. So we'll see. I mean, we'll keep an eye on it. This is one, again, we talked about it a few times. 2025, kind of what's left. This is kind of where you kind of get greedy a little bit. And you try to make a flip here in October with a talented player. Again, he's a 4-star composite. Going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. And he's just down the road there for you, obviously down in Houston. So we'll monitor. We'll monitor. This is why you become a VIP member as well.
It may or may not have been in the cards for me, Josh, that I just so happened to put in a credential request for this Saturday's game featuring Kaleb Burns and Cy Falls. I put that credential request in on Monday. The offer comes in a few days later, and so I will be very much looking forward to going and seeing him this weekend.
What's the mascot there, Cy Falls? You know what Cy Falls is?
The Golden Eagles, if I remember correctly.
I like it. I was thinking the right mascot could make that really go. That goes.
They have a pretty electric color scheme and uniform set up. They're green and gold, and Kaleb Burns wears the visor. So I think I'll have some pretty decent pictures up on the site.
Heck yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So good stuff there, and we'll keep an eye on Kaleb Burns. Obviously, again, become a VIP member. Collin's all over it. He'll continue to provide updates as he learns more about where Oklahoma stands with him. And
hopefully we'll have an interview for you guys as early as Sunday or Monday. So looking forward to talking to him and getting his thoughts on all this stuff.
100%. On that note, another guy that you talked to and got thoughts of, let's go with Kevin Sperry. I feel like we haven't talked about Kevin Sperry in a while. You were down there last week at Denton Guyer. Obviously, Zane Rowe also plays there at Denton Guyer. You got to catch up with him as well. But Kevin Sperry, I feel like he's been a little bit I don't know the right word. I don't say forgotten. That's not the right word, but kind of just on the back burner a little bit. I mean, he's kind of been in the tank for a while. There's been so much talk about the current team with Jackson Arnold, now Michael Hawkins Jr. Kevin Sperry obviously transferred down to Denton Guyer. He was at Carl Albert up here in Oklahoma City last year.
Yeah.
You got the chance to go out and see him play and talk to him a little bit. How are things going? How's his season been for those who don't know how that's going? And just, I guess, you got to talk to him a little bit, just kind of catch us up on him a little bit. I feel like it's just been a bit since we kind of got a little check-in on Oklahoma's 2025 quarterback and Kevin Sperry, who will be on campus, presumably if he signs early, or just a few months.
Yeah, let's start with the on-field stuff first. So like you mentioned, coming back to the state of Texas, if folks will remember correctly, he started his career at Prosper Rock Hill, then moved across the Red River to Carl Albert to be closer to campus, help the staff recruit every visit weekend. He was obviously pursuing those Carl Albert kids as well, wanted to make sure all that talent got in the boat as well. And so
it worked.
And it did work. And so the job to a degree is done. And so he now moves back into the state of Texas. And I think for a few reasons, this was really important for him. So on the field, settling into a new situation at a proud program like Denton Guyer, I don't have to expand much there. A lot of Oklahoma fans know not only how good Denton Guyer is, but how good of a program it is to Oklahoma at times. And so he gets outstanding coaching at Denton Guyer. I've gotten to know a good amount of those guys over there on that staff. Head coach Reed Heim coached in the collegiate level, was actually at Tulsa for a little while. And so he knows the drill. And Kevin looked really good, Josh, like really. I think the more that I've kind of stepped away from that outing, I think that's the best game I've seen him play in person, between the pads, 7-on-7 settings, even Elite 11. I thought that was Kevin Sperry at his fullest form on Friday night. 4 touchdown passes, almost all of them around the 20-yard range, maybe more. I believe the shortest one on the day was 15, and you got to think dropping back, it was another 20-plus yarder.
Sure.
The deep ball accuracy, I think, has really taken a step forward. He had a couple of throws to the back corners of the end zone specifically that I looked at our buddy Josh McCushion and I went, whoa, like that's something that he has now kind of added to his bag and has taken a step forward in his game. Deep ball accuracy, definitely there. He's in a very RPO heavy system at Denton Guyer. So that kind of translates to the next level with Seth Luttrell and what he wants to do offensively. And so you've kind of seen him now expand his decision-making in real time. I really like where Kev is. He's not looking to run much at all. He's very much keeping his eyes downfield and really sorting through coverages very effectively. And the last thing I want to say on his on-field stuff is he just looks probably the calmest and the most confident that he's looked in a really long time. Not that that was ever really an issue, but you can tell that he just feels really good about who he is, where he is, who is around him. Like, he really enjoys Denton Guyer. And I can tell that this is a spot that means a lot to him, and it translates to not only what he's doing on the field, but how he is leading on the field as well. Very communicative and overall just a guy that you can tell guys want to be around. So the off-field stuff. Talked to Kev for a really long time afterwards. Kev and I have always had a really good relationship. And so both on and off the record, we got to talking, and I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are kind of aware of the recent development. He has not been able to make it to a game this season in Norman, but there are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of them personal, a lot of them family related. And I told him after the game, I think it's really cool that he's not only trying to look out for himself and his mentality, he's also looking out for his family. Because part of this, Josh, the move back to Denton Guyer, and he talked about it in the interview that I wrote up at SoonersIllustrated.com, it was really hard transferring now 3 times to 3 different high schools.
Sure.
In 3 different areas. And I think a lot of people forget that when he moved up to the state of Oklahoma, his family did not all get to come with him. So his mom had to stay back in the state of Texas. And that took a little bit of a toll on the Sperry family, Kevin himself, having not necessarily his mom or his younger brother around all the time, having to kind of travel back and forth, constantly being on the road in order to just do something as simple as spend time around loved ones. I mean, that's hard for a young man who, the way that I kind of thought about it, Josh, like, he's kind of lived a professional lifestyle when he is as amateur as it gets, right? He is a high school kid who is going back and forth, working with a quarterback coach in a different state, recruiting guys in another state. And he's playing for all these different teams. He's kind of had to navigate different, almost like free agency settings. It's tough for a guy who's supposed to be a kid. And so the emphasis right now for Kevin Sperry is finally getting to be around his family full time and getting to be a high schooler again, because I think that there is awareness for Kevin that time is finite. And so the ability to play a game on Friday night with all of his family in the stands and then go home and them all be there, not just that night, but the day after that and the day after that, and getting to spend time around people that he didn't necessarily always get to see. Kevin, I think, is in a really good spot. And I think that the emphasis right now for him is appreciating the time that he has with his family and friends before going back to sort of that professional lifestyle that's inevitably waiting for him at Oklahoma. He is firmly committed to OU. He told me that that's not even in question. He is still trying to talk to Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell as far as who they're still trying to recruit, how the outlook of the 2025 class is going, and he remains in touch with a lot of the fellow commits. But in general, I think the really cool thing is that Kevin Sperry has kind of helped take care of a lot of other people. And in a way, he's kind of now taking care of himself. And I think, as we all know, that's very important for a young man to do.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear, because it feels like, again, like there's so much attention on the current team, and then even a little bit, and certainly on this show as well, we got really excited about Jaden O'Neal, in 2026, that he still wiggled in the middle there. And, last year, it's exciting to hear what he's doing on the field, because, last year, Carl Albert, anybody in Oklahoma knows, is a juggernaut. Okay, they just out-talent everyone. And I got to see Carl Albert a couple of times last year. They frankly just didn't really ask Kevin to do a lot, because they just were so much better than pretty much everyone they play. A lot of just, here, give the ball to Xavier Robinson. We'll force a bunch of turnovers. We'll win by 50, and then we're on to the next one. So they just, he did feel like he was really able to blossom there, because they were so much better than almost everyone they play. Honestly, we always knew he could spin it. We've seen that a million times. Obviously in camp settings, things like that. Few people throw as pretty of a football as he does. So to hear it translating down there at a high level of high school football that's produced, Jackson Arnold, the Bowens, everyone else is exciting if you're an OU fan, I think. And to hear he's still very locked in, I think you have to be very encouraged by that. And this QB room, if it all holds, and who knows what the future holds with Jackson and obviously Michael Hawkins in the starter role now, but yeah, Jaden O'Neal, and you're going to have a lot of options here very soon. It's going to be competitive. I mean, a competitive room, which is what you want. It's what you want.
Yeah. And it's going to be a competitive room with a lot of really good guys, right?
Yeah,
the one thing that I think we're constantly reminded of right now is that Oklahoma's recruiting quarterbacks who not only bring a lot of talent and ability and natural traits, but they have a high level of character. And Jaden O'Neal, certainly a part of that. Michael Hawkins, certainly a part of that. Jackson Arnold, certainly a part of that. Kevin Sperry as well. He's just been committed for so long. Like you mentioned, Oklahoma fans have kind of just glossed over the fact, because he committed at a time, Josh, I think people forget this. Kevin committed to Oklahoma at a time where they had no other 2024, 2025 commits, if I remember correctly. 2025 or 2026.
It was really early. Yeah.
He was the only commit for Oklahoma at a time where really no one else had pledged to the Sooners. And I wrote a story about it back then, about how he kind of took that leap of faith. And he was like, yeah, I was well aware of the fact that I was going to be kind of the first in, and I'm okay with that, because I want to help build. And now he's helped build this thing, literally moving around and recruiting guys and trying to compete alongside them. And it certainly is a testament to who he is, that he has not only kind of flown under the radar and accepted that, but in a way, while flying under the radar, he's elevated other people. And I think when it comes to Sperry or any of the other quarterbacks that are currently committed to Oklahoma, you're getting people like that, people that care. And that's something you can't really place value on.
Right. 100%. What about Zane? You saw Zane as well down there. How did he look?
Zane was awesome. Zane had a strip sack for a huge turnover. He had a tackle for loss on like a jet sweep end around look, where he blew right past a really talented offensive lineman. Folks will remember Nick Evers. His younger brother, Drew Evers, plays at Flower Mound as an offensive lineman. So I got to see Drew as well, and Drew looked really good. I think he's going to be a really darn good interior offensive lineman. But he plays right tackle at Flower Mound, and Zane was matched up on him, and he was able to get past Drew right off the snap and blow up this poor individual at Flower Mound in the backfield. And they did not run that play ever again. So
that's that.
Zane was awesome. I talked to him. There's an interview up on Sooners Illustrated as well with Zane. And he talked about how he's already been to, I think, 2 or 3 games this season at Oklahoma.
He's been a regular. Yeah.
He's been a frequenter of Norman. And that's another thing too, man, is like, he's a 2027 commit, folks. Like, you want to talk about committing early
down the road. Yeah.
And so when he pledged, everyone, our subscribers who are awesome, they were all like, okay, like, should we really get some excited about a 2027 kid?
Sure.
And dude, it's not just the fact that he's dominating on Friday nights, the fact that he's already frequenting Oklahoma and talking about, I'm trying to recruit everybody in the stands every single weekend. I think that's pretty cool too.
Right. 100%. So pretty cool. Cool to go get out there and see those guys. And so Collin does, bounces around all over the place. Before I let you go, we are in the midst of a bye week. So normally this is kind of the portion where I get your thoughts on the next game. But we kind of figure let's kind of do a little check-in on the bye week here, evaluate where we're at with Oklahoma. Obviously, they knocked off Auburn, which is a crazy game. We talked about that on the Monday show, broke that all down. Bye week this week, and then the Red River game, which is the greatest. And we'll have the full week to dive into all that next week, obviously. South Carolina at home, and then we've talked about it a million times. The schedule is the schedule. You got to go to Ole Miss. Got to go to Missouri, got to go to LSU. Alabama comes to Norman. It's well documented. It's tough. Where are you kind of at? Just kind of checking in with you as far as what you've seen the first 5 games, what you thought of Michael Hawkins on Saturday, and just kind of evaluate some things for Oklahoma moving into the not quite the second half of the season, but coming up on it. As far as this team kind of still capable, coming into the year, I think we all kind of thought 8-9 wins was kind of the goal. Then that kind of faded back. And now it's kind of back to thinking like, is that attainable again? Where are you kind of at on Oklahoma in general as we navigate this bye week here?
I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. I don't know where I am. I don't know what to make of this team. I don't know what to make of this schedule either. I mean, you look at the sample size that we currently have to evaluate. And I think that there are certainly known commodities, and then there are very real unknowns that I don't know what to make of going into the back half of this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the rest of it. Like, I think we kind of know that Texas is for real, and they should be getting Quinn back, which is going to make that the test it normally is. South Carolina, I once thought, man, it might be really hard for them to win that game the way South Carolina kind of came out of the gate. And now all of a sudden I'm like, that should be a win. Like, should be pretty good. Ole Miss, I think there's good and bad in what just happened to Ole Miss in that Mark Stoops kind of showed the world, hey, Ole Miss may not necessarily be what we thought that they are. But then on top of that, Mark Stoops kind of gave Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss some fuel to the fire, if you will. And so you got to think Ole Miss is going to have a chip on its shoulder whenever Oklahoma comes to town. And I don't really know what to make of that. Missouri, I mean, depending on who you talk to, which I want to say, shout out to our new friends over at powermizzou.com. We added a brand new Missouri site here at 24/7 Sports. And so, folks, I was about to say, great timing with the game coming up soon. But folks, if you want to subscribe to Sooners Illustrated, friendly reminder, you get access to the entire 24/7 Sports Network. So you can go read our Missouri site, our brand new Missouri site. They do a great job, but kind of on that note, the content that you will read around Missouri right now is either they're really good or they're a serious question mark of a football team as well. Alabama looks like a juggernaut. Then LSU, like, I think you've talked about this a time or two. What LSU is I don't know. And so I think when you look at this football team, Josh, and curious to kind of get some of your thoughts here on the bye week, just in general, this defense is for real. And I think that they are hitting a much needed bye week, in my opinion, because you can kind of tell they're a little bit tired, and that's okay. They have been asked a lot of in the early portion of this year, and they've delivered. And then this offense, man, I'm in a place right now where even some of the best Oklahoma football teams that you and I have seen, however many years we've been doing this, even some of the best OU football teams we've seen didn't even hit their stride until after the Texas game.
Sure.
And I don't even know that this OU football team on the offensive side of the ball has even started to stride yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of growth that still has to happen. And I think you kind of saw that in that Auburn game. And so we can get into whatever you want to get into specifically, but yeah, man, I just don't know what to make of this team or who they're going to face to a degree. And I think it leaves a lot of intrigue for the rest of the year.
For sure. I mean, I think that if you're Oklahoma, you have to feel an Oklahoma fan or the team. You have to feel, I think, relatively confident moving forward. I mean, the road games are the road games. Talked about it, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU. But I do think that, I mean, generally speaking, a rule of thumb is that defense travels, right? So I think that the formula for what you did at Auburn, I think, yes, you had the crazy pick six. There was some variance there. Don't get me wrong. They came back in the fourth quarter. But I do think that, generally speaking, that formula is repeatable and will get better in that offensively take care of the football, let your defense work for you, and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And, Michael Hawkins, we talked about a little bit on Monday. He's the most low-key guy I've ever covered, probably. And I think his personality, his temperament is perfect for this. And I just don't feel like, I mean, if he goes into Auburn in his first start, and that place was rocking, it was on fire in there, and it just didn't really faze him. So I don't really have a lot of worry that he's going to get swallowed up by some of these environments. So
can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this. Now that you've had some time to absorb it, I'm very curious because you've been to a lot of games, especially on the road. Where was that atmosphere and that setting for you in terms of games that you've covered? Let's say in the regular season, take postseason out of the equation.
Yeah. It's hard. I would say probably the best. Pure road atmosphere. OU Texas is kind of its own animal.
Yeah, that's off the table.
Yeah, but as far as just a pure road game, I think probably the best.
Okay.
It was so loud. It was so great. I'm excited to get to some of these other SEC road trips down the road, but it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. I think the sequence in the third quarter, especially where they were down at the goal line, Oklahoma, Michael Hawkins got sacked on third down. They had to set up for the field goal. That was as loud. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, yeah, right up there. And, I've been around a little bit. This is my 5th season covering OU, traveling all the road games, I think. Maybe I did bad math there. But guys who have been covering the team for a lot longer than me offered a similar sentiment that was right there with Tennessee. That was right there with Ohio State, So it was rocking. It was rocking. And so, again, if he can go handle that in his first start as he's a kid, he's right out of high school, it gives me a lot of confidence that as it goes on, as he gets more comfortable just from a play standpoint with his offensive line, with his receivers, they hopefully get at least Deion Burks back in the receiver room. The rest of the guys, who knows? We'll see. I think there's reason to be confident. The offense is going to at least be competent, capable to go with that defense, and you can be right in a lot of these games. So I think you have to feel somewhat confident, you're Oklahoma, that you can still get to that 7-8 win mark, and then who knows from there, right? So
I know with the bye week here, fans will kind of want us to touch on the injury front, and I think for me, kind of what you said, I'd be pretty shocked if they don't do everything possible to try and get Deion Burks back on that field for that Texas game. I think that's the way I want to phrase it. It's not a guarantee by any stretch, but I think Brent Venables kind of alluded to it last night. I mean, they need that guy because there is now kind of an outlook on that side of the ball. Taylor Tatum potentially being back for the Texas game as well, and then hopefully for the rest of the year. I mean, that guy elevates this unit, especially when
big time.
For me, I got asked during the VIP chat last night, which our VIP chat last night, Josh, we had a great month last month. So shout out Oklahoma fans. You guys are awesome. Our VIP chat last night, I think I had to answer 50 something questions. And one of the questions was like, is this the offense that we're going to see the rest of the year? Or do you expect any serious changes to what it looks like? And I was like, I'm going to be honest. I think that's the offensive line that they want on the field.
Yeah.
And I think that group finally kind of getting on the field together, because it was together for what? Maybe it didn't even happen for 10 snaps before Branson Hickman went down because Jake Taylor was hurt as well.
Jake Taylor was hurt, yeah. And then Jake Taylor got in against Houston and got hurt pretty quick, too. He joked about it last night. We talked to him. He said he hadn't played a full game since high school. Last time he played a full game.
And so that's huge within itself, because even when Jake Taylor did try to play, Branson Hickman was out. And so, like, they have this offensive line seemingly kind of set. Troy Everett is supposed to be basically full and ready to go, so they have someone that they can kind of bring off the bench.
Some buffer, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm excited to kind of see is, like, we've seen not necessarily this specific staff, but in general, the Oklahoma football program saves a lot for that Texas game. Like, one of my core memories is when Alex Grinch and that defensive staff rolled out the Kenneth Murray and the wide 9 look against Texas, and Sam Ehlinger and the Longhorns were like, whoa, this was not on the bingo card. And that's just the defensive side of the ball. This defense is really good. What they choose to alter offensively over the course of this bye week, now that they kind of have more of the continuity from a personnel perspective that they want. Yeah, I mean, it leaves a lot on the table, and I'm curious to see what it looks like, because, again, this is a team that hasn't necessarily had the opportunity to grow because of the adversity, but they got to get a lot of growth done in this current time frame, because what they're staring down the barrel of, they have a chance to find success, but it's going to be really tough.
It's going to be fun. Looking forward to the rest of the schedule. And this Michael Hawkins kid, man, I mean, you covered him. Obviously, he's free, but he's a little different. And it's on the YouTube channel. We talked to him last night. He just has the person I can compare him to from a personality standpoint would be Kyler. And even Kyler was you would think, by comparison, larger than life. Michael Hawkins, and it's perfect. It's perfect what they need. He's just a very kind of low-key, calm dude. And he's just a true freshman, so maybe that'll change a little bit over time, obviously. But he just has the right kind of just attitude and temperament for this. I was really, really impressed with what he did.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how he gets better and better as he goes.
I've been asked about that. Who does Michael Hawkins kind of compare to? And the best way I can describe it is, like, Kyler was quiet, exactly like you mentioned, but he was always kind of on edge. He was very calculated, and you could kind of tell the numbers were always going. He'd have a little bit of sass for someone that would question him or say something that he didn't agree with. And that's what made him Kyler Murray, right? He was always forward thinking and on edge. Michael Hawkins is very much Kyler Murray without that constant, almost subtle aggression in his mind. He's very calm, very relaxed, and he is someone who kind of lives in the moment. And that, exactly like you mentioned, that's what this team needs. If he can live in the moment, they have a chance to find success within that moment. And that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, and what he did against Auburn is going to be close to, just take care of the football, mental players when they're there. That's going to be close to good enough. And he's just going to get better and better. It was his first start, and I asked him about that last night, kind of going back, look at the tape. What did he like? What did he not like? And he kind of mentioned, getting through his reads a little bit quicker. And that's just going to come in time. That's going to just come in time. So I think if you're Oklahoma, you have to feel relatively confident moving forward. Obviously, we'll see next week. You can feel extremely confident depending on how next weekend goes, but looking forward to it. We'll have all week to talk about the Texas game. It's one of the best weeks of the year, and we're excited for that, obviously, as well. CK, appreciate you as always. We'll be back next week. We're going to get James in here in just a second for some in-state stuff. But, CK, appreciate you as always, man. Safe travels down to Houston. I know you're getting down there to see some more games. Busy as always, and we'll catch up with you next week.
3 games for me during the bye week. No off week over here.
No bye week.
Recruiting is a 24/7 deal, and so looking forward to seeing Kaleb Burns. I'm going to see Ryan Foje again tonight. He is playing against Paris Melvin Jr., a cornerback in 2026 that Oklahoma really likes, and this will be my first time seeing him, so I'll report back. And then Friday, I'm going to see Cortland Guillory, but I can't remember if we talked about him, Josh. I wanted to mention this. The nature of the business, I'm going to go see a 2028 running back with an Oklahoma offer by the name of Micah Rhodes, who has been going off this year for Klein Oak. So looking forward to a busy week on the recruiting front and a lot more to come next week for, the best time of year, folks. Can't wait for it.
2028, not a real year. Not a real year. Made up.
Embrace debate. Is it really a number or you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Anyways, it's going to be crazy, man. I don't even know. I was talking on the phone with someone yesterday, and I told them I was going to go see a 2028 kid, and they were like, "Why? What? Sicko mode over here. Why are you even doing that?" So, it is what it is, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Build different.
I try to be. The Oklahoma fan base deserves it, even if they are also confused why I'm covering a 2028 kid, which is totally justified feeling.
Fair. All right, that's it. We'll get James in here now. Do a little in-state recruiting roundup here to wrap up right now. All right, we now welcome in James D. Jackson to the program. James comes on Thursdays, do a little in-state recruiting talk. All right, so James, we're moving into October here. We're kind of getting into the second half of the high school football season in Oklahoma. 2025 class, most guys are kind of committed at this point.
Yeah.
Kind of do a little catch up for us as far as anything left to decide in 25. How did Oklahoma do? Kind of just put a little bit of a bow on. Obviously, it's not done until ink hits paper, I guess, obviously. But at this point, October 2025 starts to kind of wind down. So kind of give a little wrap up, a little check in on that for us.
Yeah, so the final big time commit from this class of the in-state recruits happened earlier this week when we saw it to go to Terrell, made it official to go to Missouri, and so he's going that way, which is a tight end OU had offered. They were going after for a while, but they kind of slowed down near the end, I think, as Terrell was trying to make the decision between playing basketball or playing football. Now, this guy is like 6'7", 6'8", depending on who you ask. So he gets it done on the basketball court and the football field as well. So he was kind of the last domino to fall in this class, like who's going to go where. And so I think him locking that down, you can kind of see now when you go and look at it, OU did really, really well in this class. There's a bunch of guys that OU got, especially some of the top guys in the state. You talk about Elijah Thomas from Dakota and CJ Nixon from Weatherford. Tristan Haynes from Carl Albert. There's a laundry list of these guys that OU got in this class. So it kind of puts a bow on everything. It kind of puts a bow. Of the top 25 or so, CJ Simon is the only one that hasn't committed yet. Now he transferred from Moore to Tuttle, and I'm sure that's a recruiting based type of decision to see where he goes. We're going to find out about that soon, but pretty much all of these guys are pretty much wrapped up now. So it's interesting to see where OU landed with all these people.
Yeah, we talked about that a few times over the last, couple of years or whatever. This staff under Brent Venables has done a much more concerted effort and a better job at recruiting the top end players in Oklahoma. The previous staff felt like sometimes let some good Oklahoma kids get away. You're not going to get them all. Oklahoma's a good high school football state, but you've seen that, like you said, with several guys in the top 10 going to Oklahoma. Elijah Thomas interests me in particular, and we were talking about that, last couple of days. He's way out there in Shakota, which is way out there.
Yeah.
He's highly touted. It's not like he's not. He's the number one player in the state, and he's a top 150 player. He's a 4-star, and yet you can't help but kind of feel like he might be a little underrated still because he plays his high school football out there at a lower level in a smaller town. You don't really see him that much. I haven't ever seen him play in person. He's one that really interests me, and I'd be curious if you get the chance to see him at any point this year, because I've only heard great things. But again, he's kind of off the beaten path. He's a big-time player. And, we talk about some of the other receivers in this class around the country with Cortez Mills and Marcus Harris. And it's another really good group. But Elijah Thomas is right at the top of it. He really excites me. And he's the number one player in the state. And so it's not like he's an overlooked guy, but he kind of is at the same time. Like he's a little under the radar somehow.
He does. He does every single thing. Like he plays multiple sports for this school and is like a top guy in every single thing that he does. And his coach has been hitting me up, and we've been talking a lot about him, over the last couple of years since I got here. And it's just been like, man, this guy is incredible. You look at his film and it's like, he's a man amongst boys. Like he literally can do whatever he wants to do out there. And so I have him marked on my calendar. I want to try to go see him this week because we have the bye week with OU, but I already had it on my calendar to go check him out when Dakota plays Holland Hall on the 17th of October. It's a little closer drive for me to get out there. And so I'm at least going to see him then, I believe. I got to see this guy on the field. I've seen him in training camps and things like that in the offseason. He already looks like a college football player, but getting to see him on the field in the aspect of running his offense and things like that, I'm really excited about that. Want to see where he goes from here, man. He looks good.
It kind of says something about him too that, especially in modern football, high school football, the vast majority of the time, a player of his level at a school like Dakota, smaller class, off the beaten path, all those things I just said, that he's playing his whole career there. A lot of guys, and nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But a lot of guys in high school football transfer up. They go to bigger schools. It's kind of like college football. It's very similar in that regard. I think it says a little something that he's playing his whole career out there with his coaches. He's comfortable with his town. I think that says a little something too.
You can look at it on the basketball court too with Dayton Forsythe. Played at Dale all those years. It's a guy that for sure could have played at the top class and still been a great player. I think he's really underrated as well, like you said, because playing at these smaller schools and being loyal to that. But I think that's a good thing to see for Elijah Thomas. It's incredible what he does on the field. I think the way he dominates that field, he would do the same, maybe to a lesser extent, but at the same amount on those higher classes and things like that. He's that good of a player. And you see that at the camps and things like that, because that's where all those top guys get together anyway. And you can still see him being as a standout on that group. So
sure, 100%. High school football, it's moving right through. It's already, what is it, week 6?
Yeah, it's moving, man. It's moving. I can't wait to see some more.
Moving. Playoffs will be here before you know it, coming up in November. All right, I think that's it. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, as always. We'll be back. Obviously, we get to have a little bit of a weekend reprieve here, kind of. Won't be a game preview, obviously, or any instant reaction shows this week. No game. So we'll have a couple days away. We'll be back on Monday. James, Tom, Green, and myself will get you all ready for the bye week, kind of the latest going on. We'll kind of wrap up the last week with Brent Venables, some player interviews last night. We'll look ahead to Texas, of course, as we kick off Red River Rivalry Week next Monday. So look forward to that. I think that's it for now. Be sure to become a VIP subscriber to Sooners Illustrated. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, podcast feed, all that good stuff. For Collin Kennedy earlier, James D. Jackson. I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.